Maybe you're one of those people who can wait for an answer without panicking, who can be in a place without Wi-Fi and not feel like the world is going to collapse. Who, when someone says, "I don't know," you simply nod your head because that feeling isn't new to you. If this sounds like you, pay attention. Because there's something very specific about how certain people deal with the unknown. Something that went unnoticed for years, disguised as patience, calmness, a quiet way of being. But which, in reality, is a superpower that was built up silently long before any smartphone existed. Growing up without Google meant living with questions that didn't have immediate answers. It meant going to sleep with doubts, waiting for the next day, asking someone older, or simply accepting that some things you would never know. And the body learned this. The mind registered it. It became part of who you are. In this video, we'll observe together the signs that appear in the act, react, and move through the world, and what they can reveal about an emotional superpower you may never have realized you had. If any part of this behavior seems familiar to you, share it in the comments. This is a quiet space to recognize yourself and better understand your own superpowers. Those who grew up without Google learned to sit with not knowing, and that became an invisible superpower. He has a very particular way of being quiet that only certain people know. It's not the silence of someone who has given up, nor the silence of someone who is numb. It's the silence of someone who learned long ago that not every question needs an answer now. That time sometimes solves what haste cannot. That waiting is also a way of acting. Those who grew up in a time when "I don't know" was the most honest answer developed something rare. The ability to keep functioning even without having all the pieces of the puzzle in hand. While others freeze in the face of uncertainty, reach for their phones, need to confirm, check, update. This person simply breathes and keeps going. Their body already knows this territory. It already knows that the unknown is not necessarily dangerous. This may seem like a small thing, but it's not. In a world that has become a race for immediate answers, being able to sit with doubt without collapsing is one of the quietest and most powerful superpowers a person can have. And the most curious thing is that those who have this way of being rarely realize how valuable it is, because for them, it has always just been the normal way of living. These people's bodies breathe differently when faced with the unknown, without tension, just waiting. Have you ever noticed how your body reacts when something uncertain appears in front of you? Some people feel their shoulders rise, their chest tighten, their breathing shorten. It's an automatic, almost involuntary reaction, the body interpreting uncertainty as a threat, as if the unknown were always synonymous with danger. But some people react in a completely different way. Their bodies, faced with the unknown, simply wait. This is not indifference. It's not carelessness. It's something that has been ingrained in the nervous system over years of living with the unknown. When you grow up in a time when doubts remained unanswered for days, weeks, or sometimes forever, the body learns not to waste energy on what is still unformed. It develops a kind of physical patience, a calmness that doesn't need to be rehearsed because it has already become part of the person's structure. This way of breathing in the face of the unknown is one of the most subtle signs of this superpower. While many people spend energy trying to control what hasn't happened yet, the body of someone who grew up with uncertainty has learned to save that energy for when it really matters. It's almost as if that person's internal system knows, before the conscious mind, that not everything that is uncertain needs to be resolved now. In line, in the waiting room, in the silence, they don't reach for their cell phones, they just observe. Pay attention. The next time you're in a long line, look around. Most people will have their cell phones in their hands, scrolling, filling every empty second with some kind of stimulation. It's almost an automatic reflex. Silence appears, the phone comes in, as if the body no longer knows what to do with a moment when nothing is happening, as if the emptiness needs to be immediately filled. And then there's that person who's just watching, observing the movement of the line. The way the attendant speaks, the child unsettling 3 people ahead, the light coming through the window. They're not bored. They're not anxious. They're present in a way that has become rare. This is a habit that comes from a long time ago, from a time when waiting was just part of the day. And the body learned to inhabit these intervals without needing to fill them urgently. This behavior hides a superpower of observation that few develop so naturally. Those who have learned to exist in empty moments without discomfort have unconsciously trained an enormous capacity for reading the environment, people, and situations. While the world was distracted by its own screen, this person was absorbing everything around them, and this, over time, becomes a silent intelligence that is difficult to explain, but easy to feel. If you've noticed this way of reacting in yourself or someone close to you, right, this sounds like me. This helps this video reach more people who think and feel similarly. When someone says, "I don't know," they don't feel empty, they feel space. There's a very subtle, yet profound difference between feeling "I don't know" as emptiness and feeling "I don't know" as space. Emptiness is constricting. It generates that feeling that something is missing, that something needs to be filled now, that the absence of an answer is almost a failure. Space, on the other hand, is different. It opens up. It invites. It suggests that there, in that still formless place, something interesting can be born. Those who grew up dealing with questions without immediate answers learned this distinction in their bodies. When a friend says, "I don't know what's going to happen," when the doctor says, "Let's wait for the tests," when life simply doesn't offer a clear answer, that person doesn't collapse. They nod, they breathe, because their internal system already knows this place and understands that it's not the end of anything. It's just a pause before what comes next. This is one of the most valuable superpowers in human relationships, because those who can inhabit the "I don't know" without despair can also be present for people who are lost, without trying to rush an answer that doesn't yet exist. This person becomes a natural safe haven, not because they have all the answers, but precisely because they have learned not to need them to keep standing. His eyes scan the surroundings, searching for clues before offering any answers. There's a very characteristic way some people enter a new place. Before speaking, before deciding, before anything else, their eyes are already working, walking through the environment with a calmness that seems automatic, reading faces, capturing details, sensing the emotional temperature of the space. It's not distrust, it's not shyness. It's a form of intelligence that has been honed over time, almost without the person realizing it. Those who grew up without immediate access to information learned to look for clues in the world around them. The way someone bends their arms in a conversation, the fleeting expression on a person's face before they smile, the silence that follows a difficult question. These details never went unnoticed because in a time when it wasn't possible to research everything, careful observation was the most reliable tool available. This silent habit of reading the environment has, over time, become an almost intuitive ability to understand situations and people even before having enough information to do so. It's the kind of perception that others call a sixth sense or keen instinct, but which, in reality, is the result of years of practicing the art of paying attention to what the world shows before any word is spoken. The mind has learned to build bridges with what it already knows without needing external confirmation. There's a very specific moment that happens in certain people's minds when they encounter something unknown. Instead of freezing, instead of immediately seeking an external source for confirmation, the mind begins to work with what it already has. It pulls up a memory from here, an experience from there, a detail observed weeks ago, and begins to construct, with these fragments, its own understanding of what is before it, silent, organic, almost invisible. This is a process that developed naturally for those who grew up in a time when confirming information could take days. You would ask someone older, wait to find a book, or simply stick with your own version of the answer until something better came along. And in this waiting process, the mind learned not to stand still. It learned to create bridges connections between what it already knew and what it was still trying to understand. The superpower that emerges from this is a very rare intellectual autonomy. While many people need external validation to feel secure in a conclusion, this person has developed an internal confidence in their own reasoning. It's not arrogance. It's the natural result of years of building answers with their own hands, without shortcuts, without immediate confirmation. A mind that learned to trust itself because it had no other choice and discovered, in the process, that it was far more capable than it imagined. Faced with an unanswered question, the body doesn't freeze up, it waits naturally. Imagine a simple situation. Someone asks you a question and you genuinely don't know the answer. What happens in your body at that moment? For many people, there's an almost immediate reaction of discomfort. The face heats up, the shoulders rise slightly, the mind races trying to find anything to fill that empty space. As if not knowing were a flaw that needed to be hidden as quickly as possible. But for those who grew up surrounded by open-ended questions, the body has learned a completely different response. It simply stops. Not with tension, not with shame, but with a tranquility that is almost disconcerting to the person on the other side. I don't know, said calmly, without haste, without the need to supplement with excuses or justifications. The body doesn't interpret the absence of a response as a threat. It recognizes that territory. It has been there many times before. This way of inhabiting the unknown without freezing up is a superpower that manifests itself in very concrete ways in everyday life. In work meetings, where everyone pretends to be certain, this person is the one who can say, I need to think about this more without feeling like they've lost ground. In difficult conversations, they are the one who can endure the silence without needing to fill it. In moments of crisis, they are the one who breathes while others run. Their body simply learned long ago that waiting is also a form of wisdom. This age-old habit has created an emotional tolerance that most people have never trained for. Emotional tolerance is one of those things that no one teaches with words. No one sits down with a child and explains how to endure the frustration of not knowing, how to cope with the discomfort of a doubt that has no date for resolution, how to keep functioning when life doesn't offer a clear answer. This type of skill doesn't come from theory. It comes from repetition, from years of living through situations where the only way forward was to keep going even without knowing what would come next. And that's exactly what happened, silently, to those who grew up in a time without immediate answers. Every time a doubt remained unanswered for days. Every time the I don't know needed to be swallowed and digested slowly. Every time life went on without offering the confirmation the heart wanted, the emotional system was being strengthened, like a muscle that no one sees being trained, but that appears in the hours that matter most. The result is an emotional stability that others notice but rarely manage to name. It's that feeling that this person doesn't lose their footing easily, said Da can be present in difficult situations without crumbling, that they endure tough conversations, unexpected news, and changes of plan with a serenity that seems almost inexplicable. But it's no mystery. It's the result of a lifetime of unconsciously practicing the art of persevering even when nothing was guaranteed. If this explanation has made something clearer about your way of being, comment, now I understand better. Your participation strengthens this community of self-knowledge. For them, uncertainty is not a threat, it is the natural state where creativity is born. There's a very common belief that creativity is a gift, that some people are born with it and others aren't. But there's something few realize. Creativity, most of the time, doesn't stem from an excess of information. It stems from exactly the opposite. It stems from the empty space between what you know and what you don't yet know. It stems from the need to invent a path when the map doesn't exist. It almost always stems from uncertainty. Those who grew up without immediate access to answers, unconsciously developed a very intimate relationship with this creative space. When the encyclopedia didn't have the page you needed, you invented your own explanation. When the book ended before the story, you continued it in your head. When the path wasn't marked, you chose a direction and went. This constant exercise of filling gaps with imagination shaped a naturally creative mind, not out of talent, but out of necessity. And this superpower remains active to this day, often in ways that the person themselves doesn't recognize as creativity. It's the ability to improvise when the plan fails, to find solutions where others only see problems, to feel comfortable in a project that doesn't yet have a defined form, while everyone around needs a detailed roadmap to get started. For this person, uncertainty has never been the end of the road. It has always been the place where the most interesting paths tend to begin. Ultimately, growing up without immediate answers taught the heart to trust its own process. Of everything that has been built up along this silent journey, patience, observation, tolerance, creativity, something even deeper remains. Something that doesn't appear in a specific behavior nor in an isolated reaction. Something that underlies everything, sustaining each of these superpowers without directly appearing. It's a very particular trust in the very process of living. An inner, almost unconscious belief that things have their own time and that this time needs to be respected. This trust didn't come easily. It was built in every moment when the answer didn't arrive, when the heart wanted it, but arrived anyway. In every situation that seemed hopeless and found a way out. In every doubt that remained unanswered for weeks and was resolved in a way no one could have planned. The heart learned, slowly, that the process has its own logic and that trying to rush that logic almost always costs more than simply following it. This is perhaps the rarest and most beautiful superpower of all, because in a world that has transformed haste into virtue and impatience into productivity, being able to trust your own process is almost an act of resistance. It's the ability to keep planting even without seeing the seed sprout. To keep moving even without knowing exactly where you're going. To keep being who you are, the way you are, without needing external validation to know you're on the right track. This way of existing is not naivete. It's the most silent wisdom that exists. And if you've made it this far, perhaps you recognized a piece of your own personality at some point in this video. Maybe you remembered a situation where you stayed quiet when everyone around you was panicking. A time when you waited, observed, trusted, and things fell into place the way they needed to. That wasn't luck. It was a superpower being exercised silently in the way you've always known how. Have you ever noticed this type of behavior in yourself or someone you care about? Share your experience in the comments. Sometimes, just reading similar stories makes us feel much less alone. If you enjoy content that reveals the hidden superpowers in your personality, subscribe to the channel. Here, we look at common daily habits with a deeper and more human perspective.